Namaste everybody. Thank you and welcome along to our Thoughtful Thursday. My name is Nityanandadas. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're enjoying the change of seasons as we move into some warmer weather, leaving the winter behind. So tonight's program, the hour program, will be some guided meditation to start. And then we'll be following that with a wisdom talk on a spiritual journey, where and how to start our spiritual journey. And then we'll conclude this Thoughtful Thursday hour with some kirtan meditation, using these sacred mantras that we like to incorporate into our regular practice. So to begin, we'll go through some guided breath work. So I'll ask you now just to sit up nice and straight. You might just roll your shoulders back. If you've had a busy day, you've probably been busy at work or trying to get many things done. It's nice to just leave it all behind. Closing our eyes and just starting to withdraw our senses and turn inwards. So in the ancient yoga texts, the Bhagavad Gita, it states that withdrawing the senses is similar to the way a tortoise draws its limbs back within the shell. So it's nice to begin this practice by making the breath a little bit longer. Just letting the shoulders and face relax. So there's lots of areas in our body that we hold tension but we're not aware of it. So some key areas around the eyes, around the back of the neck and the throat, and also our jaw. So just take a little moment here to scan these areas, making sure they're relaxed. They're in a position where they're not going to be taking your focus away from the meditation. So just preparing the body now to meditate. Actual breathing work and body relaxation are simply just relaxation. They're not actually meditation techniques. They're just pre-meditation techniques to get us into a position where we can forget the body, have it at ease, have it at peace, and then we can bring the mind under some control to focus. And I like to just gently draw your shoulder blades together, just gently. Feel like each shoulder blade is moving down and across into your opposite back pocket. Having good posture also is conducive to good breathing, good relaxation. And just letting the eyes soften. If you've been looking at the monitor a lot today or doing a lot of manual work, our eyes are often working quite strongly. It's nice to get them to relax. And shifting the attention now a little deeper to the breath, we put either one or two hands down onto your lower abdomen. So we'll be breathing diaphragmatically now. As you breathe in, be aware that you're trying to expand your abdomen with the inward breath. Then as you breathe out, it's nice to just finish that last part of your exhale, the little contraction of the abdomen. It just helps the breath to sink down into the base of our lungs. And try not to let the shoulders creep up or creep forward. So the diaphragmatic breathing is also helping our mind just to sink a little bit, to slow it down. During the day, our minds engage in lots of different tasks. Gathering information, processing information, deleting information. So we also need to give it some time to be managed. So just like our other possessions in life, the mind is a possession that we must continue to care for in a productive way, in a positive way. Okay, so let's just take the hands a little higher. You can just pop them under the rib cage now. We're focusing the breath now into the center of the lungs. So just feel your breath working into your palms. Just focus your breath into that space. Although you may have completed this exercise numerous times, we can always continue to take it to a deeper level, make it more refined, more focused, hence being more beneficial. The ancient yoga text states that we must start to purify the mind. So the mind is a friend or the enemy of the conditioned soul. So through constant practice and detachment, the restless mind can be curbed. So we can't stop the mind, just bring it under a higher influence for purification. Okay, one more breath here into the center of the lungs. Okay, we're going to shift our hands up. So there's two choices for your hands. You can either put the fingertips and thumbs on the armpits, or just like I'm doing here, you can just sit them on tops of your upper chest and collarbones. Very relaxed, putting them there. So we're just taking the breath now into the upper section of the lungs. We'll only do a few short breaths here. It's not a very relaxing type of breath. Relax the tongue and throat. Okay, so now we put one hand back to the lower abdomen, keep one hand on the center of your chest, just softly touching. We'll now combine these three for a complete yoga breath. So as you breathe in, expand the lower abdomen, in the middle, and we bring the breath to the upper chest. As you breathe out, just feel that breath being emptied from the top of your lungs to the bottom. Do it at your own pace. No need to rush. With a long, relaxed breath, the nervous system gets a gentle, soothing vibration sent through it. So in the background you can hear the yoga mantra Gauranga. We're now going to add that mantra to the breath. So we'll do a couple of silent breaths first. And then we'll add that mantra. So it's important that we keep the mind engaged here. Put it on the nice soothing bed of the mantra. Okay, let's breathe in together. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale again. Next inward breath, we add the mantra Gauranga. Inhaling, saying the mantra aloud, Gauranga. Keeping our focus on the sound, Gauranga. Okay, let's do it one more time. Face relaxed. Elongate the breath. bringing our focus back to the mantra as the mantra resonates through the mind. So just taking a couple more silent breaths here. Okay, so when you're ready, just taking one more deep, relaxing breath. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so thank you for joining in there for our guided breath work. So now we're going to move into our wisdom talk called A Spiritual Journey, Where and How to Get Started. So before I speak, I'd just like to offer my respects to my teacher and Lord Chaitanya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutade Srimate Siddhasrupananda Paramahamsa Tinamane Bhajashri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Shivasri Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So if you're not sure why we offer our respects, it's in spiritual etiquette to always pay tribute to our preceptors, our previous teachers who have passed this information on to us so kindly, as we try and pass it on without any personal touch on it. So most of us are somewhat getting tired of spending our precious time on the normal daily things that we have in society. We work hard, we work one, maybe 2 or 3 jobs to struggle to survive and have a little bit more fruit for our labor so that we can do the things and try and enjoy the things that we like. So we've often embarked on a career or some type of occupation that starts out being with great expectation that we hope it can bring about a wonderful change in life, so that it can set us up financially to do things like that. But we'll always find in life, no matter what our journey is in material life, or what we'll probably describe as our common daily life, it never actually meets the expectations that we hope for. And actually, in my own personal experience, everything after a while tends to seem round about the same. So when I began my spiritual practice about 25 years ago, I actually found that one of the reasons that I'd like to try meditation was because I was bored with doing the same thing over and over again. It felt like the weeks always were the same. The years one tends to merge into the other. We have the seasons and we have different festivities at different times of the year. It always seems to just, after a while, almost go on like some autopilot where everything felt the same. And we also get a little bit, tired of, coming home after a hard day's work and maybe trying to just fill up the rest of the day with a bit of TV. The same things seem to be on all the time, that just seem to be rehashed. Except these days, there's a bit of reality TV, or I'm not even sure what they call it that, or a bit of UFC, or, some sensationalized renovation program that sort of gets everyone up and going for a bit. So we're all looking for something that's actually much more fulfilling, much more motivating, and personally of a higher experience. We always want a higher experience. We always want to taste something that's actually sweeter than most of the things or all the things we've done in life. So if we look back on all the things we've done in life, all the nice things that we've done, the situation is no matter who we are and no matter what circumstances we've engaged in, we're always wanting to have a better experience than that one. So whether we've been on a holiday overseas, if you've been fortunate enough to travel, you might spend a couple of weeks or a month or so, or maybe even more in some idyllic location. And then as soon as that's over and you're on the plane, or maybe even just at the airport or touching down, whatever it is, even when you come back to work after that time away, you're always trying to take it to one notch higher, one little bit higher. Because you want to have another experience that's even better than that one. And that's okay, because that's the nature of an experience in this world. That's the nature of them, that they actually don't last. They have a temporariness to it, which is actually built into this world itself. Everything here is of a temporary nature. One of my things that always used to remind me of the repetitiveness of a week was the Sunday night thing, realizing that tomorrow was Monday. I've got to get back to it tomorrow. That's the inevitable. Well, some Mondays obviously you take it off if you're not really up to it, but there's this sameness to everything. That's the point I'm trying to make there. So in life we all come to conclusions. We're at certain points in life we come to crossroads. Conclusions about where am I going and what am I doing and what's this all about? Some of us come to these conclusions and understandings at a young age. If we watch closely our parents or our extended family, our relatives, friends, neighbours, and we see the difficulties that they go through or their daily workings in life. Or sometimes we might come to these crossroads and conclusions when we actually leave home, fly the coop and go out into the big world, try and stand on our own 2 feet. Once we've experienced that, we understand it's actually can be quite a daunting experience, can be quite formidable at times. And some of us come to these crossroads and conclusions in life when we lose it, or we lose it all. We might have an experience of bad health, we might lose that profession that we so cherish, we might have the dream job that unfortunately due to circumstances we can't control, we can no longer be placed in. We might lose a loved one, or there's a number of different situations that will happen to each individual that actually make us come to a certain point in life where we reach a crossroad. Some people reach it before they're about to leave their body. Okay? So when we become burnt out on life and we become feeling somewhat lost or dejected or even left out, or just pondering in deeper curiosity what it's all about, we get to this point where we actually start a spiritual journey. For most of us, it tends to happen when we actually, in life, have some difficulty. And these difficulties will come and they will go. So in the back of our subconsciousness, there's always a voice. There's a voice that has clarity. There's a voice that's very grounded. It's a guide. So within our heart, we all have this guide. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's called the Chaitya Guru, or the guide within, who's actually, for all of our life, been giving us instruction, giving us guidance on actually how to begin and start this spiritual journey. But while we're caught up in the material world, we tend to turn our back on this voice, or maybe we don't even hear it when our consciousness is covered over by our material experiences. So all of us have a different covering, material covering on our consciousness. So if we only need to take a little step back, or maybe for some of us a big step back, and be introspective, and to take a bit of a look at our life from a distance, and be honest, maybe even a little bit frank with ourselves, and realize that there's something here that I'm actually not experiencing that I would like to experience. Something that's more special than everything else that I've done, something that's more heartfelt, something that's more lasting, something that's actually going to grow and become bigger and better, and something that doesn't turn out the way that all these other things have turned out. You know, with this still want of more. So for my own personal experience in life, everything that I had attempted in life had never actually fulfilled me. You know, I always was looking for something more. I tend to get right into something, get into it in a big way, put all my energy into it, and then without being very balanced, I'd get burnt out on it. And then I'd try something else. So what does it actually mean to embark on a spiritual journey? That's the big question. What does it actually mean to be on a spiritual journey? So does it mean that I can just follow all the dictations of my mind, all the urges of my mind? You know, our mind is constantly urging us to do things. So, is it spiritual just to follow everything that comes into my mind? Every time my mind says, okay, go out and do this or go out and do that, should I do it? Or all the things that I've read about in different books or maybe seen online, are they spiritual? So if we follow our mind and do everything that our mind tells us to do, we'll be living in what's called a fool's paradise. A place where there's actually no peace, no shelter. So a spiritual journey is founded upon applying practical techniques regularly. So this brings about a change of heart and a change of consciousness. So spiritual life is about regularly practicing techniques on a daily level that actually cultivate a change of heart. So I like to think of it as doing like a full-scale renovation on our internal environment. So internal environment determines the way that we conduct ourselves, it determines where we actually look for happiness. It determines the level of relationships that we have. So material relationships and material activities are very different to spiritual activities and spiritual relationships. So by daily applying these techniques, we can actually bring about a full-scale renovation of the condition of our heart. So before we discuss these different techniques, we need to understand the nature of the place that we live in which is temporary, and also the age that we live in. So in this modern age, despite all its technological advancements, all the new trappings, all the new gadgets, all the new applications, and all of the so-called advancements, life has actually been never more chaotic than before. Life now is actually a lot more stressful than it was 25 years ago. Life back then, 20 years ago, was actually more carefree. We didn't worry about security so much. We have so many things today that preoccupy us in our struggle for survival. And there's so much data now out there. There's so much information that we're being exposed to, stating that we're also more unhealthy than ever before, physically, mentally. There's more addiction now to substances. The escalation of drugs and recreational drugs and hard drugs and party drugs has gone through the roof. We tend to be more lazy than ever. And we're over addicted to our phones, all their applications, and social media. So the age that we live in, from a spiritual perspective, is described as being very unfortunate. And these different things that I've mentioned are actually having a drastic effect on society, and they're maybe having a drastic effect on some of us personally. So knowing full well that the age that we live in is called the age of Kali, which is described as being like the Iron Age. It's a very difficult age that we live in. The great Saint Lord Chaitanya appeared 500 years ago. His name was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great master. So with great humility and great vision, he implemented into society the tools and techniques suited to our modern day consciousness, to attract our weeping hearts and our minds. So Lord Chaitanya was the greatest visionary, knowing perfectly well how this age would progress. So that's why he was able to deliver the perfect tools and techniques for all of us to actually tap into, to find peace, happiness, and to actually have a happy spiritual journey throughout this very chaotic age. So the ancient yoga texts, some of you might know them, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and some different other ones, describes that there are 6 types of witches. These are described as being the witches of allurement. They're always dragging us, alluring us away from our spiritual path, trying to capture us and attract us to things that are actually not that beneficial for us. So these 6 types of witches are described as being our 5 senses and the king of the senses, which is the mind. So these Vedic texts actually reveal the truth that in this age we're quite lost, we're bewildered, and we're very confused. We don't know which direction to take in life. For most of us in life, if we were actually to survey people and ask, well, what direction in life are you taking? And what's the purpose of where you're going? Most people probably actually might find that quite difficult to ask, or may not be able to actually say it with any conviction. So the material energy is able to bewilder us. To bewilder us in thinking a number of different things. That there may be happiness there, but the main thing that it bewilders us with is that we think we're the body and the mind. And the name of this material energy in the yoga text is called Maya, which means illusion. One of the things that we're actually prone to becoming is illusioned. So this is called Maya. So the interpretation of this word, Maya, means that which is not. So to start our spiritual journey, we don't need to change our address. We don't need to change our residence, the place we live. We don't need to change the way we look. We don't need to change our wardrobe. We don't need to change our haircut or get a haircut or let the hair grow or grow a beard, or there's no certain look. They're not qualifications, and they're also not disqualifications as well. We don't need to change our partner. Okay, we don't need to change these things externally. So what it requires is actually a change of choice. So that's how our spiritual journey begins, by a quest for happiness, which will always be there, our quest for someone to love, which will always be there, our quest for peace and tranquility, which will always be there. We need to actually look in a different place by exercising a change of choices. So all of the activities that are actually described in the yoga system are designed for one purpose. So the purpose of all these processes is the purpose of a consciousness, purification of our consciousness. So in different ages, different practices were recommended for people in society. But some of these practices take a lot of time, and we don't have a lot of time. One of the things that's also prevalent in this age is that life is quite short. Life is quite short. Plus, also in previous times, they had to undergo severe austerities to complete these techniques. But also, there was no guarantee in attaining success in these different applications of the yoga system. So an example is the Ashtanga yoga system, which was practiced in more ancient times. So this is where the mantra enters, or enter the mantra, which is the gift of Lord Chaitanya. So the mantra is the gift of this age. These transcendental sounds which are received through this sacred line of teachers, which give us the potency to actually apply these techniques to actually become purified in this age. So these transcendental sounds are a transcendental love current that descend from the spiritual realm. So in the Vedas it describes there are two different types of realms: the material realm and the spiritual realm. So the spiritual realm is the place that's described as having no anxiety. There's no frustration. There's no bewilderment or confusion. Those things only belong in the material world. The spiritual world is actually free from these experiences. Everything there is a transcendental or a spiritual experience. So to begin our spiritual journey, we need to come in contact with a non-material practice, a non-material technique for applying to our daily life. So it needs to be a practice that we can easily apply. Need to be able to apply it at lunchtime. If you have a break at lunch, you can apply this process there. You can apply it without needing to sit in a particular type of position, without sitting in a lotus position, or you can even have bad posture, or practice no types of physical yoga. It's something that also we can able to do as a community, do as a group, do it with friends. So rather than having to renounce, we just need to add it to our daily life. So as I mentioned in previous ages, a lot of these practices, people went undergone strong austerity. difficult austerities, fasting for long periods of time, being very frugal in their habits. But the gift of the mantra is that we can use our daily activities, our propensity to work and our daily chores, and integrate them with the use of these transcendental sounds and actually perfect our daily life. That's what a spiritual journey is about, using all of these propensities that we have and using them in the right direction. We don't have to give them up if you've got an art that you enjoy or a propensity that you like. You can also dovetail these propensities to help you on your spiritual journey. So the question here is, so what is the destination of the spiritual journey? It's important to understand every journey that we embark on. If you're going to go on a journey to Sydney, so we know it's 1,000 k's to Sydney. And along the way, you can gauge at how far you're going along in that journey by different signposts that let you know. So the destination of the spiritual journey is wonderfully quoted in the Bhagavad Gita. So the destination is Ananda. And Ananda means bliss. So the spiritual journey means to link up with the Supreme Person to experience true Ananda and bliss. So I'd like to read a quote, actually three texts from chapter 6 from the Bhagavad Gita in this reference to describe this destination for the true spiritual seeker. So it states, the stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks that there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So this spiritual journey is an eternal journey. It's not a temporary one, it's an eternal journey that we can actually continue to develop on an eternal basis. So this wonderful verse, powerful verse, actually points strongly to being fixed, a person being continually fixed and advancing in a higher experience. An experience like no other. It's not an experience that money can buy, not an experience that you can personally induce, or one you can actually experience on a particular substance. And it's not one that a person can fake. It's the most real experience that we can actually feel. It's purely heartfelt. So the spiritual journey is a very real and ongoing experience. So it's a very personal union between us individual selves, known as the Jiva Atma, and the Supreme Person, who's known as the Paramatma, who's also, as I mentioned earlier, the Lord in the heart, the guide within, who travels with us on our journey throughout the material world. So he has a localized aspect within our heart. So great sages, they liken the spiritual journey to a cultivation of a sacred garden. And there's many aspects to a garden. There's the foundation of the garden, the structure of the garden, different textures of the garden, the different fruits that come up in the garden, the changes with the season. So cultivating a spiritual garden, the analogy of preparing the beds or the foundation is having moral practices, moral codes, sincerity, honesty, being introspective, avoiding finding faults in others. So these are called yamas and niyamas. So they're our personal conduct and our conduct within society. So this lays the foundation for our spiritual growth. So enriching the soil is done through our regulated daily practice. So like we regularly water the garden to actually help the garden to grow, of course. And so it's like our daily practice, our constantly meditating on transcendental sound is important for the garden to actually grow. So watering the garden is done through spiritual association. Spiritual association is very important. It helps us to advance. And removing the weeds from the garden is also a part of gardening, something that gardeners do, but sometimes also very troublesome. It can be very difficult getting some weeds out of your garden. So weeding the garden is like avoiding the tendency to find fault in others and being critical of others and resisting the temptation to become angry. So one way that we can actually understand if we're actually progressing on this spiritual journey, progressing to the destination, is that our attraction for mundane material things, the activities that we may have felt attractive before, start to slip away. I'm not so attracted to the way that, or what other people think of my body, the way that I dress, the car that I drive, the amount of money that I have in the bank. You know, these so-called achievements, we're not so attached to them anymore. So as they similarly decline, our desire to want to engage in more spiritual activities will increase. Our desire to chant and focus on these sacred mantras more will increase. So as our levels of material attachment drop away, our spiritual attachment will grow. Our desire to actually engage in these activities will rise. So that's how we can actually gauge whether we're actually advancing on the spiritual journey as well. So if we can actually apply this regular, beautiful practice of kirtan meditation, which we're about to get into, and avoid the tendency to be critical of others, we can actually make progress quite nicely on this spiritual journey. So that leads us into our kirtan practice now. So we're going to be using the mantra Gopala, Govindarama, Madana Mohana. There's also a little chorus in this. And we'll also use the mantra Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol. So if we've only got 15 minutes or so, let's try and utilize this time to immerse our minds in this practice. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana. Your turn. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana. Haribo, Nitai go, Nitai go, Haribo. Haribo, Nitai go, Nitai go, Haribo. Haribo, Nitai go, Nitai go, Haribo. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana. Together. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana. One more together. Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana. Haribo Nitsai Go Nitsai Go Haribo. 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 Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana. Last one together. Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana. So it's nice to just keep our eyes closed for a moment as we feel those sacred sounds as they wash over our consciousness. So I'd just like to conclude that the spiritual journey is one of a higher experience. It's about leaving behind all the clutter, all the little temptations, all the trappings, all the glittering lights of the world and actually finding a place of great clarity, greater understanding, and feeling a contentness, but also seeing our smallness, how small we are within the greater picture of everything. Just living a life of deep simplicity and happiness. So this can only be achieved through regularly applying a bona fide practice. And that practice is these wonderful sacred sounds, these mantras, in the practice of kirtan, or you may be already practicing individually techniques at home in your daily life. They're all wonderful techniques that can help cultivate this deeper experience. So I'd like to offer you my respects. Namaste, and thank you for joining me. Haribol.